So I'm going to be undertaking a fairly interesting project just now. I'm taking this keyboard, which is a SteelSeries keyboard, a 6G V2 keyboard, that one of the buttons has stopped functioning. And that button essentially is the Alt button, unfortunately. So what happens is it's constantly, so this is a beautiful keyboard meant for gaming. It has the best tactile feel that I've ever seen in a keyboard. It's like really amazing. And the reason I'm going to these lengths to repair this is because I love this keyboard so much, and repairing it is not an option, and getting a new one is very, very expensive, especially because I've got another keyboard which is a Keychron Q1 Pro keyboard, which is also a fantastic keyboard, but I love the feel of this. It's different. And so I want to have this keyboard as a backup when I sometimes game or I'm typing for long periods or something. And so I'm going to repair this Alt key. Now this keyboard is essentially something that needs to, it's not a hot switchable kind of switch on the keyboard. So on the keyboard you have the key itself, which is the top of the switch, and then there's a switch. Now this switch is welded, is soldered onto the printed circuit board, onto the board of this keyboard. So I'll have to unsolder it and then put in a new switch, and I've got some switches, extra switches, and I'm going to put that in and then solder it back on. So it's a interesting project. Let's see if I can succeed. I've got a soldering iron, and I've got this keyboard here, and I've got all the tools. So the first thing I have to do is take off all the keys from the keyboard. Now let's start doing that. So this is how you take off the keys. This is the tool that I have, which is basically meant for this. So you just kind of plonk this here. It goes under the key, and then you kind of let me try and hold up the phone and show you. And wait, it's difficult for me to hold the phone and also show you this, but let me try. And then yeah, I'm holding the key. So now this has gone under, and you just pull out the key. So it's quite useful, very good tool. I recommend it strongly. There are other tools also, but this makes everything very quick. The only thing is getting rid of the key after that is a bit of a problem, but let me show you that again in case you haven't seen it. So you just push like that, and then pull it out like that, right? So I wish teeth were equally easy to replace, but that's, so I'm going to do this for the entire set of keys now. So you can see I've almost got all the keys off. There's just a few left, and you can see they're all gathered here, and I'm putting them here. I've taken a photograph to make sure that I know the layout, and I'll pull all of these keys out now. So let's get this big one. See, it's gone, and see how much dirt there is. So I'm going to clean this up also. So a little bit of servicing while I'm also repairing the keyboard. So that's another key, and this is the tool that I used for most of the keys, but of course just a few left, so I don't need to use the tool. So after this, I'll get around to opening the keyboard from the back. So this is just a regular brush that's used for cleaning keyboards, and I'm going to use this to dust this off. And cleaning your keyboard is a must if you live in India. Very dusty environments, use this brush, open up your keys and clean it. Your keyboard will thank you. So I've taken off the 4 screws on the back of this keyboard with this star screwdriver. Very simple. And now all I have to do is kind of take the board out of the casing of the keyboard. Easier said than done, but that's what I'm going to be doing next. And we'll take this board out, and I'll see you on the other side. So this is really the heart of the keyboard. This is the printed circuit board. This is the integrated chip that you can see here. So these are all the switches which are connected to this computing bit here, and then of course the connector goes to the USB cable. So this is really the heart of the keyboard. So all these are switches. I have to identify the one that's not working, and then correspondingly remove the soldering, and then put in the new switch. I've got some switches here. Put in the new switch and then solder it in place, because this model requires soldering. So the Keychron Q1 Pro that I've got now has toolless switching of switches basically. So you can actually replace a switch without any of the soldering bit. But this keyboard doesn't have it. So I'm having to do the soldering and stuff like that. Let's see. So let's get on with it.
But my question is, how are you going to identify the key that's not working? What's that process?
So that's pretty simple. You just press on the key that's not pressing down. So you can see that this key is working, this key is working, this key is working, this key is not.
Right.
This key is working. So it's this key which I have to look back at the printed circuit board, and it appears to be this one. So this is the one that I have to switch out. And you can see actually that this bit has moved from one side where it's meant to be to the other side. So that may be responsible, and it's kind of broken away from the soldering. So it's constantly depressed. And in fact, it is labeled here, if you see, Alt left. So the left, it says Alt L, which means it's the Alt key on the left side. So because I don't solder every day, I had to get a soldering iron. Now this is something I've grown up with, watching my dad solder stuff like every second day. And of course nothing got repaired, so I'm kind of a little bit worried on that account. But it's interesting that there are different kinds of soldering irons. So this, accidentally I've ordered the right one, and this is meant for small soldering jobs. So this is really what it is, and I'm using this cutter to open this and inaugurate a brand new soldering iron. But by the way, I think every guy worth his salt should have a soldering iron, a multimeter, and a workbench at his house.
Who's your helper?
My helper is Ducky, who's he's known by the name of Inspector Clouseau, because anything that changes in the house, anything new arrives in the house, then he has to inspect it. So Inspector Clouseau, stay away from this thing, okay? It gets really hot. It gets really hot when it's on. And by the way, cat's fur has like electrostatic stuff, so he should stay away from the printed circuit board. He might fry the board. So when you take a break and you come back and you see this on the dining table, and that's why you know that you need a work table. Every man needs a man cave and a work table and a tool bench or whatever it is. And so this is why, because the fact is that this keyboard I'm not doing as a project because I like it. Honestly, I'd asked a bunch of people whether they could repair a keyboard, because only one key was gone from this fantastic keyboard, which is quite expensive also. And everybody said no, so I have to do it myself. And then I realized if you do things yourself, then you become quite independent and you're not at the mercy of all these repair centers and things like that who promise one thing, then don't deliver. And you always have that whole issue of things not being done to your satisfaction. Plus, you can learn about basic stuff, and this is really doesn't seem that difficult. Of course, these might be famous last words, but let's see. I've got to replace this key here, and I'm going to try by soldering it out and then soldering the new switch in. So it took a while to get all the tools together. I already have the soldering iron, the soldering paste, which is the flux. Then I have this soldering wire, and I have to get to this essentially to remove these solders initially, right? Now when I have to remove these, I realized that when I heat it up and remove these, I would need something called a soldering, I think it's called a vacuum pump or something. So basically this pulls up this solder. So essentially this vacuum kind of gun or whatever it is will pull up this melted solder and take care of it. Otherwise the melted solder will remain here, won't come off the board even if you do melt it. This is the one. I hope I don't do the wrong switch. This is the one. So once I do that, then I have to suck up this solder, and this is what this gun helps me do. So basically that's the reason that it kind of took me a while to get down to doing this. So now I'm going to essentially heat this up, use some of the flux, heat this up, and then use this gun, which has to be primed, and then you just fire it and it sucks up this whole solder so that I can then take out the switch and put in the new switch. So let's see how that goes, and I'll get back to you soon. So it's a pity that I couldn't actually show you the process, because it was very difficult to film as well as kind of do the soldering, do the desoldering and the soldering, because it required a lot of dexterity and both my hands, and also needed me to have the solder the wire, the flux has to be used, and then you have to have the vacuum gun ready and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to film at the same time. Tried a couple of times, it didn't work, so that's not part of the video, but it's actually a lot of fun. Requires a bit of dexterity, and but it's not as difficult as I would have thought. I guess for people who solder all the time, it's like really easy, but we tend to kind of stop at dismantling a computer at the board, right? We don't want to interfere beyond the board. So this is the first time I've actually done some work on a printed circuit board and done some soldering, so it's been actually quite fun. Maybe in a future video I'll try and show you the actual process. And voila, the keyboard is repaired. I've just tested it out at the PC and everything's working fine. You can see the switch that I've changed is this switch from a different set, which is not part of this set, not part of the SteelSeries set. These are different switches, but I've put them here and I soldered it on here. I haven't done a fantastic job of soldering. You can see, you know, these bits are kind of, you can see like, I don't know, some residue, and the shape is not as symmetric as the rest and everything, but it's effective, it works. It's connected the pins to the circuit board and the keyboard is working. And quite an expensive SteelSeries keyboard, which was not functioning because the Alt key was stuck, malfunctioning. Not just not functioning, but malfunctioning. So Alt was always depressed, so I could not use this keyboard. Has been repaired, and it's all thanks to this soldering iron, this soldering vacuum, this solder wire, and of course the ubiquitous flux. Now, like I said, I've seen this happening in my house all the time, which is what gave me the confidence to go ahead with this. So I'm quite chuffed actually that I've managed to pull it off. The keyboard is working. So now you can see that I'm putting all the keys back together. So these are all the keys here, and I'm putting them all back. QWERTY, UIOP, all of that, ESD, all of that. And before I put them back, I'm taking this opportunity to clean them with alcohol so that the dust is all gone from, so they are absolutely sparkling new. Like I said, I was quite happy that I got the keyboard working, and now I will put all the keys in and start using it. So now I have two keyboards. One is a SteelSeries, which I've repaired, and the other one is a Keychron Q1 Pro, which is also a fantastic keyboard. So two great keyboards. And because of this whole project, I've discovered the whole cult of keyboards. There's an entire community devoted to obsessing over every small detail, including the keycaps, the springs, the softness, the damping, the frame, everything. And there are keyboards that are worth as much as $3,500, and they sell out within hours, and you have to get on a wait list to get that keyboard. I'm not that crazy yet, but I'm enjoying the high quality keyboards these are, because if you think about it, the maximum contact, if it's not a touch screen, the maximum contact with a computer is really the keyboard. And because it's so tactile, the tips of your fingers are in touch with it, and all of your fingers almost. So it's quite important. And because you use it repetitively, if you're typing like me, I type a lot these days to give prompts to AI. Earlier it used to be about writing stuff out and all of that. So I'm deeply attached to the keyboard part of the computer, because the rest of it in terms of performance and all that is kind of a concept that's sitting inside a tower or inside the laptop, and this is what you touch. So that's why there's this whole sense of almost like an art of getting the keyboard feel right. And so I'm getting into that. So really interesting. But let me complete this keyboard, and thank you for watching. And if you like this kind of content, follow the channel and like, share with your friends, and of course subscribe.